Hello, my name is Rashad, and today we're going to learn how to make kibbeh, a Middle Eastern delicacy. Helping me today is my assistant Omar, so let's go ahead and get started. This is everything you will need to make kibbeh. First, we have 2 pounds of ground lamb. You're going to see each pound is used in a different manner to make the kibbeh. You want about 1/3 cup of pine nuts, some olive oil. You're going to need a mixture of these spices, 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. You're going to want some fresh yogurt to eat with the kibbeh after it's cooked. You want a cup of fresh bulgur wheat, which I will show you what to do with here shortly. You need a second mixture of those same spices. This one is going to be a full teaspoon of allspice, a full teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and you will need a food processor. So let's get started. What to do with the bulgur wheat is actually very easy. So I have a cup measured out right here, and so what I'm going to go ahead and do is just use the cup I have and get some cold water running, and I'm just going to fill it up till the water gets to about 1 inch above the bulgur wheat. And so once I do that, I'm just going to let it sit, and then all the dust and everything from the bulgur is going to rise to the top. It might take a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to rinse the water out, do that again, and then do it a 3rd time and let it stand for a full 10 minutes. Okay, so while that bulgur is sitting for the last time for the full 10 minutes, you can save yourself some time by cooking the filling of the kibbeh. So what you're going to need for that is just the smaller onion that you cut up really fine. You want 1/2 pound of the lamb. You're going to want your pine nuts, and then the smaller mixture of the spices, the one that just had the 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon pepper, and then the olive oil. So all you're going to do is just cook the onion first, let them get about 10 to 12 minutes in there, and then add your lamb till it browns with the spices. Finish it off with the pine nuts till everything is cooked nicely, and then go ahead and set that aside and save it for when we're going to use it later. So what we're left with after cooking the meat, you can see it's a very beautiful looking cooked lamb with the onions, and then the pine nuts, which I just threw on at the end. They're not fully cooked, but they will be when this goes back in the oven with everything else. So sorry I couldn't show you this being cooked in action, but if you're not comfortable with it, I would say go ahead and order a pizza. Okay, so now's the fun part where we get to use the food processor. So I'm going to start by chopping up the other onion, the larger one, and go ahead and pulse it until it is finely chopped. Now, once the onion is chopped, go ahead and add the other pound of lamb and the larger mixture of 1 teaspoon of allspice, teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Go ahead and throw all that in there and process it some more until it's a nice, smooth, fine texture. Add the lamb and spices to the onion and process everything together. This is what you'll have, a very fine, smooth texture. I know it doesn't look that appealing, but I promise you, after everything is baked together, it'll be one of the best things you've ever tasted. And plus, you've come this far, so there's no stopping now, because get ready to manipulate this with your hands. This is the bulgur wheat from earlier. You'll remember it was very hard, very fine texture, but now after soaking it in water 3 different times for about 15 to 20 minutes, it's very loose. This can be packed together nicely, and you want to squeeze as much water out of this as possible before adding it to the lamb mix, as you'll see in a second, to make one smooth, consistent mixture that we'll use to make as the base for the kibbeh. The lamb mixture and the bulgur side by side, we're going to go ahead and just put that in there, and then you want to mix up everything by hand to make it as consistent as possible. So get your hands in there, mix everything around until all the bulgur and lamb is mixed together consistently. Okay, so after mixing the lamb and bulgur together, you're going to have a very easy to manipulate, easy to pack mixture. And then what you're going to do with this is now put a lining of it over this glass pan. You want to put some olive oil. Make sure that you put the olive oil up the sides before you pack the bulgur into it, and you'll see what it looks like here in a second. Here's what that mixture looks like now that is lining the pan. So you can see the thickness of it is going to be as much as you need or have left over, because you're going to use that to be a top layer, which is going to go over the meat. Remember our meat mixture? So we're going to take this and go ahead and pour it into this, spread it out evenly, and then we're going to have or be ready to put the top layer on. What that will look like. Now you want to go ahead and make that same layer of the bulgur and lamb and put it over top this and try to get it in on the sides to where it's nice and tight and comes together with that bottom layer that's sticking out a little bit. It's a little bit tougher to do, but if you're patient and just pack this up and then lay it on top, it'll be fine. Here's what it will look like after you put that top layer on. Now I'm just going to brush it with a little bit of olive oil, cut it into crosshairs, you'll see in a second, and then put it in the oven at 400 degrees in the middle rack for about 35 to 40 minutes. After that, you're then going to put it near the broiler to brown the top for 5 to 7 minutes. It will look like after you put the olive oil, cut it with crosshairs, and again, it will go in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes at 400 degrees in the middle rack, then move to the top rack for about 5 to 7 minutes on broiler setting. Here we have the finished kibbeh. I also toasted some pine nuts and then inverted one into each square just to give it a little bit more of a full look. And I probably left it under the broiler about a half minute too long, which is why it's more crisp on the edges. But pair this with some cold yogurt and you've got an Arabic delicacy I'm sure you will enjoy. So bon appetit! And this is the end result. Everybody loved it. Enjoy your kibbeh.